Hey everybody, this is Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com, where we motivate and educate you to grow your business. If you're listening to the sound of my voice and you like it, we love a 5-star review. If you're listening to the sound of my voice and you hate it, that's okay. Still give us a 5-star review. I win either way. We're all here to help your business grow. Would appreciate a review, would appreciate a comment. Share it with somebody else. Don't be selfish. Don't keep the knowledge. Share it with somebody else. But we have an amazing interview. This could be, Laura, one of the best interviews that we've had in the entire Smart Hustle universe, with Laura Spaulding of Spaulding Decon. Happy to really understand her business, her background, what her challenges, and what she's done to succeed, and her journey of success, sharing with us. Laura, how are things in your world? I hope you are doing well.
Ramon, I am so grateful to be here. Thank you so much. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad you're here. I am from the vacation capital of the world. At least that's where I sit at right now, New Jersey. What about yourself? East Coast, West Coast, or somewhere in Asia, Africa, Europe? Where are you?
I'm in Tampa, Florida, sunny Tampa, Florida. Right now, very humid Tampa, Florida.
Love it. Love it. So you probably never heard of the word snow. It's a white stuff that falls kind of, and they have shovels they scrape it up with.
I think I saw it on the news.
Yes. Or YouTube, yeah. You can look at it.
Yeah.
Laura, glad you're here, Laura. Why don't you dive right in and tell us what is Spaulding Decon today? Help us lay the groundwork, the context for who you are today. And then we're going to go backwards a bit and understand how you got there. And I know you're a franchise, so I want to talk about that a bit. And then tips for success, but give us a context of today, what Laura Spaulding, what Spaulding Decon is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Spaulding Decon is a national crime scene cleanup company. We also do other mitigation type services like mold remediation, hoarding, drug lab cleanup, some flood restoration. But our bread and butter is the crime scene cleanup.
I love it. So help us understand that. There's only one movie I've seen about what I think you do, and I'm sure you know the movie. I'm sure everybody says the same movie, maybe. So help us understand the movie of famous black actor with the shaved head who's on the credit card.
Samuel Jackson.
Thank you, Samuel Jackson. Yes, that movie. So that's the only context I have. But who's the client? Is the client law enforcement, or is the client the business owner? Give us a day in the life. Help us understand the mechanics of crime scene cleanup. Because I get water damage. You know, the street ruptures, water comes in it. Somebody got to clean the stuff. So help us understand what you do in that context, if it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's actually a big misconception that law enforcement is our client. Law enforcement in some cases can refer, but in most cases not. So our clients are typically homeowners, apartment managers, hotel owners, condo associations. Basically anyone that manages or owns the property is responsible for the cleanup service.
Got it. And then help us understand what the day in the life like, because you're talking to somebody, by God's grace, thankfully, I've never really interacted, and I think most civilians in the U.S. haven't, right? Or we'd be in a pretty jacked up society, meaning we hear on the news, but I'm guessing, but you correct me, feel free to push back. Most are not walking around, yeah. Just last week, I saw a gunshot wound in my whatever, or 2 days ago, somebody's leg was chopped off. Oh yeah, most of us don't walk in that world. So I'm thinking, really? That must be like a lousy business. She has no business, but clearly there is. So help us understand the mechanics, the day-to-day, what it's like,
Absolutely. So most people think that all we do is crime scenes. That's actually only about 14% of what we do in terms of biohazard cleanup. The most of what we do is unattended deaths, basically elderly people that live alone, that go undiscovered. For a while, we do suicides, accidents, whether it's, you're cutting some wood in your garage and you slip, and cause a pretty good gash there. Or car accidents, the airbag deploys and breaks your nose or something, and there's blood all over your nice new car. So it's not just that, and in coronavirus, we deal with the viral disinfection as well, MRSA, any type of contamination, we disinfect after that. So it's a lot more broader than people would think. The term crime scene cleanup is very narrow, actually.
I got it. No, I understood. And so that's where it comes in as the consumer. If it's something where I'm not going to get a towel and some soap suds and wipe it myself, if it's something where I'm not going to call my kids, come over here and clean up this mess, I'm having some fun here. But in general speaking, that's where Laura and her team are going to come in. If it's something where I'm not going to call my cousin Ernie, hey, can you help me lift this plywood out? If it's something where everybody's like, oh no, that's where you come in.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's for the bigger stuff.
Love it, love it, love it. Good. So help us understand then how you got there. First, a little bit about maybe your background, if you don't mind, before you got here, before you got to being Spaulding Decon. Who was Laura in the day before that or the weeks before that? Tell us your journey of getting here.
it's the struggle was real, let me tell you. So right after college, I thought, I want to be in law enforcement. It sounds fun, exciting. You can do different things. So I went and applied to a bunch of different law enforcement agencies all over the country, major cities, Phoenix, Dallas, Detroit, Miami, all these areas. Well, one of the cities that hired me first was Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
So left college, went straight to Kansas City, Missouri. Had no idea that what I was getting into over there. And it's one of the most, high crime, more violent cities in the country. And I learned a lot. I did that for about 7.5 years. I was undercover narcotics. I did undercover prostitution for quite a while. And it was during undercover narcotics that I really got this kind of aha moment when I'm undercover buying narcotics and I'm watching the SWAT team dress up in these, suits and respirators with oxygen tanks. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
What are you guys doing? Well, we're going to bust a meth lab. And I'm like, wait, so it was okay for me to go in there unprotected to buy it, but you guys go in there to bust it and you're all protected. And I was like, yeah, this probably is not worth $38,000 a year. So it was a come to Jesus moment of, I got to do something else here. So it was one night working a homicide, and the victim's mom said, when are you guys coming back to clean this up? It was almost like she was under the impression that that's how it happened. Weirdly enough, that was the first time I'd been asked that question. And I just kind of looked at her with deer in the headlights and said, oh, we don't clean this up. And she's like, well, then who does? And I was like, that's a great question. I'm going to find that out. So I went on kind of this fact-finding mission and realized that it's few and far between, if it existed at all. This was back in 2005. And I thought, oh boy, there's a potential. There's potential here. I had no idea if it was a narrow potential, if it was just crime scenes or if it was bigger than it was. I had no idea that it would grow into the animal that it is today, but that's how it started.
Wow, that is amazing. So give us some of the pillars of how that started. I'm sure, I find if I'm wrong, let me know, but I do find after doing interviews for a lot, many businesses are the same. The tentacles are, you got to have, I'm sure you have some van or product in your case or whatever the stuff you need. You got to buy that ahead of time. And then you got to market it. You got to tell somebody that Spaulding Decon is here, get somebody to hire you and give you your first check and et cetera. How did that first year, 6 months, if I'm a little accurate of how it could have been, tell us your journey of that, just to start, what happened? Sure.
Well, this was probably the hardest part of my journey because I thought, okay, so there's potential to do this here. I always had it in my head, this will be a side hustle, right? I'm not going to just quit my job and start doing this. I need some training. How do I do this? Where do I go? So I'm doing a lot of research online, and I found a guy that was training people. He's no longer there, but this was in Dallas, Texas. Training people on how to clean up these crime scenes. And I called him up and he said,
DIY, that was kind of like the YouTube, like, did all your tires fall off? Don't want to go to Meineke? Here, I'll teach you, get a socket wrench or this wrench, a 2/8 wrench. And he was trying to, okay, continue.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. This was before the YouTube days, So I used the last bit of what I had in my savings account. I was broke as a joke and went out there and I spent 5 days with him. And several other people and learning how to do this. Well, sitting right next to me was 2 nurses that decided that they were going to join teams and they were going to do it on the side as well. So they start telling me that how easy it was for them to get an SBA loan. They got like $150,000 SBA loan. And I thought, oh, well, there you go. That's what I'll use for startup. He literally gave me his exact business plan. I copied and pasted it. Went back home, walked into the bank all confident, and they said, hell no. So I was like, okay, so maybe it's just the bank. So I went to another bank, and they said, not no, but hell no. I went to 4 banks, and they all told me no. I called my new friend back, and I said, listen, I did exactly what you did, what you told me, and they're all laughing at me. And he was just perplexed. And that's when I realized, I'd experienced discrimination my whole life being, a female in a male-dominated area. And for some reason, I was naive enough to think, oh, it's different in business. It's not. It's not at all. So I was literally, going to the same banks. He was in the Midwest, the same business plan, and we had the same salary, and I was not getting it. So I had to get creative. And so I lied to the fifth bank and said I needed a home equity loan for new windows. They wrote me a check for 15 grand, 10% of what I thought I needed. So I was like, okay, that's enough to buy the equipment that I need. I can't get a vehicle. I'll get a little trailer. I'll pull it behind my paid off SUV. And I was off to the races. So I started just kind of doing it as a side hustle.
And then from there, I'm sure the rest is not history, but did it grow from there? Notwithstanding the franchise part, but the business part, did it pretty much steadily grow word of mouth and whatever guerrilla marketing and things you did? Is that
Well, then I had another wrench in it. So I started guerrilla marketing because I didn't even know how to do a website. I couldn't afford a website. I printed my own business cards. They were the crappy little perforated thing that you print at home.
I've used those.
Oh my God.
No Vistaprint, no cards from Moo. These are like
and created my own little pamphlet. It was like a Word document. I walked in and I'm knocking on doors because I didn't have any money to do anything else because I spent it all on equipment. And I just started slowly getting some traction. But then the police department decides to throw a wrench in it, and they say, we were okay with you doing a side hustle, but now we're not.
I've been there before.
You need to choose between us or your new business. And I was extremely put off, and I said, you know what? I've only made about $30,000 in this business. I'm going to quit my job and take a run for it. Right. So I literally threw everything in a garbage bag, turned it in, said I quit, packed my bags, and drove off to Florida. And that's where I really started the business.
Good for you. And what skills? We could talk about negative too, but I think you've probably obtained some skills, either learning it from the police and or your skills and what you did. Has that helped you in sales or reading people or anything in business? I'm curious, police, undercover work and all that. Anything that you're like, wow, Ramon, just yesterday I was able to read this person, know they were lying to me or whatever,
that's a really good question, because right at the beginning when I'm going door to door, I realized, man, I don't know how to sell anything. I don't know how to talk to people unless I'm interrogating them. It was one of those things. So what I did is when I moved to Florida, I took a medical sales job, and I had a really cool boss that taught me how to sell in a super competitive market. So I used those sales into my business. I worked there for a couple years, and then I was doing both at the same time, worked there for a couple years, quit that job, and then I'll tell you, I think sales to this day is probably the best skill that you could ever learn, because you can use it in anything.
Yes, no, you're so right about that. I tell everybody that I think it's a gift, not a gift, but something that I do relatively well. Everybody, I have different weaknesses, but sales and communicating, listening is something I do well. But I tell everybody to learn it, and even myself, I've taken some courses just to sharpen it, because we can all learn, some things. By the way, I'll recommend it's a book called The Like Switch. I always like the like switch, about how the FBI gets Russian spies to turn, called The Like Switch.
I love books, so I love that referral. Thank you.
And anything quasi-military. When I said FBI, Laura was like, "Oh, I'm there."
Have you ever read Never Split the Difference?
Of course, by Chris Voss.
Fantastic.
Similar type of, that's like the AOD. Yes.
Okay.
So Never Split the Difference we're talking about here. I'll put that in the links, everybody. And The Like Switch, 2 book recommendations by Laura Spaulding. All right. So business is growing along. If nothing else in that, and then towards the end, I'm going to get some tactical things and ask you for tips on marketing things, but I want to continue the story. Tell us then about the franchising part. Business has grown to a certain point. If you can talk about employee size, whatever, meaning what point did you turn on and why did you turn the switch then for franchising, which is, I'm guessing, another chapter in the journey. Talk about
it. Is. Yeah. So kind of what happened was, 2008, I quit that sales job. I'm running my Tampa location full time. We're really moving and grooving. Well, then all of a sudden, the recession hits right at the same time that I quit that job. So what I started to do is market to all of the organizations, like preservation companies, that are taking care of all these foreclosures. And that proved to be a huge win for us. We were doubling, tripling sales. Well, then one of the reps calls us, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, we were doing all those. They call and they say, hey, we know you're only in Tampa, but we'd like for you to handle the whole country. And you can subcontract it. We're okay with it. And you just manage the process. And I thought, wow. So I hire a bunch of admins, and we're basically developing this process of farming out the jobs, getting quotes, getting the materials back, and we're moving and grooving. So one day I'm having lunch with my attorney, and he says, man, you've already got this process down. Why don't you franchise? Right? He says that in 2012. And I said, oh, I don't know anything about franchising. I'm not interested. I can't do that. So he says it again in 2014. And I'm like, you know what? This is the second time you've said it. Let me look into it. So I started looking into it, and admittedly so, very naive, had no knowledge of it whatsoever, and kind of just jumped in. Like, I'm a big shoot first and then aim later. So I did that, and here we are, 55 locations later. We launched in 2016, so this is our 5th year of, going on 6th year here of doing that.
I love it. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but give us some insights. I've talked about franchising quite a bit, but is it true that franchising is kind of a separate job to itself, at least that I understand it? You have to run, Spaulding Decon, whatever ones you own, management, and all that. You got to have that run it. But then franchise is different. That's managing the franchisees and helping them. Am I right? Something like that?
You're 100% correct. It was like, and that was another thing that, I was super naive about. You think, okay, I know my business back, right, left, forward. I can do this. But the issue that punched me in the face, literally, was the systems and processes that I had for one location weren't going to work for a franchise system. Mm-hmm. So I had to grow into new systems that could accommodate large volume.
Got it. So for example, do you remember, can you give what were you doing, even if you have to make it up metaphorically, but for example, what were you doing? Hey, Ramon, we were doing fine in Tampa doing XYZ, but to scale it to 100 people couldn't work. Give us an example of that.
Yeah. So one of them is the phone system. So, we had 2 phone lines, and then we had to catapult into over 100 phone lines. So what the system that we were using, the local kind of frontier Verizon system, wasn't going to work. So we had to kind of grow up into that and have switchboards and call centers and things that I hadn't needed when I was just a solo person.
Got it. And are all franchises the same, or are they different? And regardless of your answer, how does yours work? Meaning, when you think of the phone systems, pretty much all one number that you control, the mothership controls that, then you farm it out, or do some have no? Get your own number. Walk us through kind of some of that. What does the franchisor do? What does the franchisee do for your business? And or let us know if some are different, like a Dunkin' Donuts is different.
I believe that most franchise systems are a little bit different. Okay. So for our system in particular, it was important to me to control the call center. So we would basically have the same script, a human being answering 24 hours a day. I find that crucial, especially when people are in an active crisis, So by doing that and entering into our CRM system, dispatching the franchisee or their employees, that way everything is very seamless. It runs congruently. I made the mistake originally of trying to kind of, let them answer their own calls. And I realized, how are they doing that? They're in a Tyvek suit and a respirator. How are they supposed to answer the phone, So, what I learned is franchisees expect franchisors to essentially provide a business in a box. Yes. So we need to have everything running from A to Z. I don't want them to think or have to worry about anything. They should just have it done for them. Obviously, I can't go door knocking in Philadelphia. You need to do that for your location. But what I can do is answer that phone, enter that information, provide some marketing for you, a website, and all of the back end stuff.
So let's talk about going to marketing is interesting. How much, we'll keep talking about Spaulding Decon. Do you do in marketing? How much does the franchisor do? I'm just curious, meaning does Jenny, who owns the franchise in Littletown, Austin, do you expect her to do something? Or ideally speaking, forgive me calling it mothership. I know it's not called mothership.
Yeah,
that's the word I use. The mothership will do all the demand generation. And all I want people trained to go out and clean. We'll drive demand, or no, is it part of the deal? Now, you're going to have to do some local stuff, talk to your local chamber. How do you envision it in a perfect relationship?
Yeah, so with a service-based franchise system, a local guerrilla marketing is expected and required. We need you to make relationships there. I can do it, but from Google or a website and stuff, but that's not an interpersonal relationship. So we try to take care of kind of the SEO. We have that in house. We do some direct mail marketing. We do a lot of funnels and things like that you're probably familiar with. But like I said, what I can't do is I can't attend that BNI meeting in all of your cities. I can't network with the Chamber of Commerce and do that for you. So you still have to do a little bit of marketing to help yourself. But I find that you probably know this as well. A lot of our lead source either comes from online or they know who we are. And then that's where our kind of social media has exploded on that.
I love it. Laura, and by the way, do you have a few more minutes? I know it's about to the half an hour. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. What's your advice, Laura? Then I don't have no specific question, but for businesses listening, I mean, we can talk about leadership. We can talk about marketing things you've learned. We can talk about hiring. We can talk about finances. Anything comes to mind for you. And I know you have some experience here where, Ramon, these are one or two things that I would pour into that I'd say, do this, whether you want to split it, franchise advice or regular advice. And you'll know, Laura, that I often ask 57 different questions in one breath. So thank you thank you for following with me. It's just me. That's my style of interviewing.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me when they want to get started in their business. And what I could say is, because I had so many hurdles there, I can tell you that you have to be resilient and you have to have the ability to pivot. You are going to get told no 100 times before you ever hear the word yes. And it's those that actually go through that 101 times that make it. It's the ones that maybe don't have that plan, or that are weak, or that are always looking for that plan B. You're not going to make it if you're constantly looking for a way out. You have to be resilient and pivot, because I'm telling you, it's not softballs you're going to get thrown. You're going to get thrown fastballs.
I love it. And this is I want to ask you, do you think discrimination still exists? I think 100%. It's obvious. Yes. I didn't want to ask it quite that way, but I guess, okay. So I hear you're not even, it's like you're not stuttering. Well,
let me tell you, I'm a part of a mastermind called Go Abundance for Women. Okay. And, it's 175 very, very successful women. And we just had our mastermind in Dallas, Texas this past week. And one of the topics was the lack of funding opportunities for women-owned business and minorities. And it was brought to our attention that only 2% of venture capital actually go to women. So this is something that is persistent everywhere. Yeah. Unless this particular female or minority person is scrappy, unwilling to take that no for an answer, you'll make it, but the others will not. So there's a higher barrier of entry for women and minorities, no question.
I love it. And then another question, and again, feel free to answer this as you wish, or we can move on. I'm not turning this into a political discussion at all. Sure. I promised you before we hit record, I wouldn't, but I'm going there. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, do you, and I don't even know how to ask the question, but as obviously a Black guy, but do you see that there are two types of discrimination? Some where I guess what I'm trying to say is ignorance or familiarity. Ramon is green. He's just used to green people. So he says yes automatically to green people. He's a nice guy. But when pink people come, that's what, if you get what I'm trying to ask, or is it where there's some people who are really jerks and they're like, no, we don't like pink people. We will always crush them down. That's what
I think it's absolutely both. So people are obviously automatically attracted to people that look like them, act like them, live in the same neighborhoods as them. I think that's just a human component. But there's also a vast quantity of people that are absolutely ignorant, that they're just not going to give people that the opportunities that exist. One of our core values is empowerment. So we employ a lot of minorities, women and minorities, and my goal is to give people opportunities where they otherwise wouldn't have had. And I am passionate about that because of what I went through in my past, even before my business experiences. So I think it's super important. And, my mastermind itself is kind of putting together groups here to elevate people that aren't getting the same opportunities.
That's powerful. Laura, anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to touch on before we go to the quick roller coaster ride conclude? Anything you wanted to add or touch on? Anything I didn't ask you?
Probably our social media presence. That's been big on our franchising, as well as awareness. Because remember when we talked, you even were under the impression that, either we market to law enforcement or law enforcement might handle that cleanup. So I had a hurdle to overcome, and it's just little old me, right, in one city in America. So I thought, in 2019, let's put a reality type thing on YouTube showing the before, during, and after. So that has been huge for awareness. We're almost at 1 million subscribers on YouTube, 4.3 million on TikTok. And the number one goal was awareness, and I think we've accomplished that. It's been huge.
And listen, Laura, you're cheating kind of in a bit. The average accountant, what are they going to do? Here's your 1040. Here's how to do it. Laura can be like, do you see all this? Whatever this is, watch this. And
Yeah.
Like Jason, breathing. Yeah. Now it's clean. So Laura, come on. I mean,
right. But people are curious. Like, we even do the mundane. How do I get mold out of my tile in my bathroom? Stuff like that. It doesn't have to be. How do I get that part of a skull out of a ceiling?
So you're not going to like sponsor the next Jason Bourne movie, whereas Matt Damon's, I think it's Matt Damon, whoever it is, midstream it pauses. Brought to you by whatever's about to happen next. Spaulding.
Hey, I'm not opposed to that.
You see?
I'm not opposed to that at all.
In midstream, the character pauses. By the way, what's going to happen next? If this ever happens to you, call Spaulding Decon.
I'm not opposed to that.
I love it. And while we're at it, Laura, feel free, tell us about how to reach you, the business. One, I'm sure maybe there's two different ways out of the same way, but those who want the franchise opportunities, we have many business owners, those who could be looking, what's the best way to do that? And then in general, somebody's in their home or office and needs you, what should they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a great show on YouTube. It's at Crime Scene Cleaning. Our website's crimescenecleaning.com as well. You can see franchise opportunities there. There's even some cool merch. We even have a mascot, Maggie the Maggot. Ooh. Funny. Yeah, there's a story behind that. So you can reach me on the website as well. We're on Instagram at Crime Scene Cleaning and TikTok as well.
I love it. Listen, Laura Spaulding, it's been so great spending some time with you and bringing you to the Smart Hustle audience. And indeed, this has to be the best interview I've done in many years. Other podcast guests listening to me, please be gentle. But really, Laura, it's great having you with us. Laura Spaulding, a Spaulding Decon. We've heard her story of marketing, her story of learning to continue on. Don't just take no for answer, but press on. Her story of learning from others and so much more. And I'm Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com, where we motivate and inspire small business owners to start and grow successful businesses so you could live the life you want, serving the people and communities you want. This is why me and Laura in business. This is it, to provide for our families and live the lives we want. So thanks for listening. Give a 5-star review if you like this interview. If you didn't like this interview, you know what to do. Give a 5-star interview as well. Thank you so much. And again, Ramon Ray, you can find interviews like this at smarthustle.com.